Hello everyone, my name is Jason Ramirez and welcome to Season 3, Episode 4 of the Hit List Podcast. A podcast where me and a guest cross out films from our watch list by watching them. I'm joined today by Katrina Boylan, aka Abra Katrina. Welcome Katrina, thank you so much for being here.
Thank you so much for having me. This is the first podcast I've ever been on and I'm very excited.
Ooh, that is exciting. Okay,
right?
I gotta set a high bar for you.
You already have.
All right. That's good to know. So Katrina is a Twitch streamer, and in her channel she streams her costume builds, photo shoots, and sometimes also N64 video games. And it's the actual video game. She doesn't emulate. She actually plays the actual games. So Katrina, before we get started, I have two very important questions for you. So for one, can you tell me about your streaming viewing habits? Whenever you sit down to watch a movie, do you watch something new or do you stick to your favorites?
I'm about halfway through there. I've seen all of the memes where people are like, oh, people with anxiety rewatch their favorite show a lot. And I do that. I've seen Community like 15 times. The Office was one that we watched forever until they took it off Netflix. Yeah. And I'm the same. I'm a big cartoon person, but in the last 5 years, I have been trying to watch more movies that I've never seen. I hadn't seen so many movies. People would be like, what? And it was almost kind of a fun game for me to be like, haha, I've never seen that. But now the list is getting smaller and smaller. So this was the perfect podcast for me.
You're just like my other guest who was here last season. I'm not sure if you know her, Sailor Tabby Cat.
Oh, that's an adorable name. No, I don't know her, but I love it.
I think you'll like her.
Sounds like Sailor Moon and Cats. I'm already there.
Yep, exactly. So my second question for you is, and this is very important, it can make or break your career.
Oh, no.
But there are also no wrong answers. Are you ready?
Yes.
There's probably a wrong answer, but pancakes or waffles?
Oh, God. Oh, man. Okay, so I am celiac. I can't have gluten and flour anymore. Just within the last year. So it's all a little different to me, but I think I'm a pancake person because I really have gotten into bacon pancakes since I did that project from Adventure Time, because Jake sings a song about bacon pancakes and we've had them 3 times in the last few months. It's the sweet and savory thing that really does it for me.
I've never had bacon pancakes, but whenever I hear that phrase, bacon pancakes, I also think of Jake the dog singing that. Yeah. And I also think of that remix of the song Empire State of Mind.
Yeah, it's so good.
Dun, dun, dun.
Bacon pancakes. I love it. I'm obsessed with it.
I remember, I think it was in 2019, I went to New York for intern for a day program for my school. And I'm in the subway and I'm listening to Spotify. I'm like, there's a perfect song for this. And I put the remix of the Bacon Pancakes with Empire State of Mind. I'm like, this feels right. This feels right.
Oh, yes. A human of quality. I see. I love it.
All right. Let's get to the two films for today. Today, we'll be discussing Ghost, directed by Jerry Zucker, and This is Spinal Tap, directed by Rob Reiner. Ghost is a 1990 American romantic fantasy thriller film directed by Jerry Zucker, written by Bruce Joel Rubin, and starring Patrick Swayze, Demi Moore, and Whoopi Goldberg. The plot centers on Sam Wheat, a murdered banker whose ghost sets out to save his girlfriend, Molly Jansen, from the person who killed him through the help of a sidekick, Oda Mae Brown, played by Whoopi Goldberg. This film was on Katrina's list. Katrina, why was this movie on your list?
Well, I've definitely been on the internet and I've definitely seen the romantic Demi Moore, Patrick Swayze pottery. I did the motion, he saw it thing. So also I was born in 1990. It's just a movie how have I not seen this before? There's been so much reference to it. Watching it, there was a few lines and I was like, I've heard this line. I've heard people just say this to me. And I honestly had no idea. I was like, oh, it's about pottery and ghosts. And my partner was like, what? I was like, that's what it's about. And he was like, no, okay, no. And no, that is now. They do pottery once in that movie and that's it.
Yeah, same thing for me. I remember seeing bits and clips of it when I was younger because they'll play it on cable channels at night, or on Telemundo, they'll play it in Spanish. But there's only 2 parts I remember from that movie. The pottery scene and when the villain dies. I remember that specific scene when he dies. Other than that, I had no context for the movie. Other than I knew that Patrick Swayze was a ghost. Yep. Because, it said on the info bar, ghost. Right. I'm like, oh, that kind of makes sense. But other than that, I had no context. So I always thought it was also about pottery because Yeah, it's a famous scene, and it's
Yeah.
parodied everywhere, even in Community. I think it was in the first season or second season.
Yeah, one of the teachers like, it's one of the Bluth kids. I don't know why I can't think of the actor's
The youngest
name right
one.
now.
He was,
Yeah,
was
the
the youngest
youngest
one.
one. And he's like, I swear, if any of you do the ghost thing, you're out of my class.
And then he points to like a poster of Patrick
Yeah.
Swayze with like a crossed out sign, and people are like,
Yeah.
and like, okay, I put that up before he died. Okay,
Right. Yeah. Oh my gosh.
but yeah, I also thought that like in this movie he would come back in some way and then do that pottery scene again, but no.
Yes, I did too. I was like, he does this as a ghost, right? And I think it's because I remember seeing the VHS on my parents' wall, and there was a photo of him and her, and he kind of looked like a ghost near a pottery wheel. So that's why I always thought, you know what I mean?
So I actually have, whenever I can, I borrow the movie from the library because they come with special features. This is what it looks like, the cover. I'm not sure if you guys.
Okay, maybe it's just like a blur from my childhood, but I remember
could
him
be.
looking it's in black and white, so I can see why I was like, he's a ghost.
Yeah, and then this is on the back. You know, that's him right there. With
Oh,
the
there you
pottery.
go. Yeah.
So
There it is.
for those of you who are listening to this, just look up the ghost poster online. I'm not a very good descriptor of things.
They can see it in their memory. It's basically Demi Moore and Patrick Swayze being sexy together in black and white poses.
Yep, basically. So what are your initial thoughts on the movie?
I loved it. It was, my partner described it as a sexy paranormal thriller, and boy did it deliver. I had no idea about this movie at all, really. I was like, oh yeah, they're artists. First of all, the warehouse they live in is freaking awesome. The early 90s downtown in New York, they had like a 2-floor warehouse that was just like empty. And I was like, this is insane. So that was, I really, really, really liked it. I thought it was fun. There was one part where they got a little too deep into banking, like, and like money laundering, that I was like, okay, this is enough of this. But then they got back to the spooky, and I was like, okay.
Wait, speaking of that warehouse, I believe it's still for sale for a cool $10 million.
Wow.
Yeah.
Do you want to go in on it?
No.
Yeah, no, I know.
I'm fine. I'm fine.
Good. Yeah, I'm good.
I'll live on the street, you know?
Well, I'll live on the other coast. I live in California. I'm not going to New York. Sorry. My cat.
Go ahead. But yeah, what were your favorite scenes then?
I mean, the pottery scene is iconic, which is just like showing their romance. And I love that Patrick Swayze goes from like weird douchebag banker to like romantic artist husband that like loves his wife like instantly. I was like, what is this switch? Like, he's in like a suit, and then all of a sudden he's kicking an angel through a window with his like button down shirt, like that's got like pattern on it. But I think I love Whoopi Goldberg, and I didn't even know she was in this movie. And her role was iconic. I think I'm trying to think what my favorite with her was, but I really liked the initial when she hears him, because she's like pretending to be a psychic, and then she's doing a fake, I don't know, not exorcism, but she's trying to talk to somebody's husband that had passed. And then Patrick Swayze's like, this is bullshit. And she's like, what? And she's like looking around, and like the initial, like her figuring out that she's hearing somebody in her head was really, really fun to me.
Yeah, Whoopi Goldberg, like that dynamic between Patrick and Whoopi is amazing, because
Really
they're
good.
so different.
Yeah.
But they play off each other so well.
Yeah.
And for me, my favorite part with her is when she first meets Molly and they're in the apartment, and Sam Wheat, he's like, okay, I want you to tell her this word for word. She's like, okay, he wants me to tell you this word for word. You're in danger, Molly. You can't go ahead and just tell her right out like that. I'll tell her in my way. Molly, you in danger, girl.
Yes, that was one of the lines. I was like, I have heard people say that to me before, like as like a joke. And I was like, what? And I was like, oh, I didn't even know it came from here. That is perfect. That's a really good scene.
I really liked how his best friend turned out to be the bad guy.
Yeah.
And
Carl.
What kind of name is Carl, by the way?
I know. Well, and okay, the other guy, we kept just going, it's Luis Guzman, because it is Luis Guzman is the guy that kills him. The actor.
No, it's not. Is it?
Yeah, we looked it up.
Luis Guzman?
I'm pretty
Is
sure.
that for Community?
Yes,
No,
from
'cause that guy
IMDb.
died. That guy
He does
died back
die.
in the 90s. Yeah. Hold on. Let me look
I
it up.
believe maybe I was like, that's not him, and my partner was like, yeah, I looked it up.
His character's name was Willie Lopez.
Yep, that's him. Yeah, and he looks totally different.
No, that's Rick Aviles.
Oh, he was considered. Oh man, I'm blaming my partner on this one. I kept yelling the whole time, Luis Guzman from IMDb. Why would you do this?
They have a similar looking face, but this actor, he died back in the 90s.
Oh, okay. There's
Yeah.
something similar I talked about, that the guy that was on the train, the ghost that taught him how to move stuff.
Mm-hmm.
There was I was like, is that Jeffrey Tambor? And I looked it up. No, it's not. But so many people have thought it was him that like the guy that was him like put out, he's like, no, this is not, this is me. This isn't Jeffrey Tambor. Which is funny that I did the same thing with Luis Guzman.
Have you ever seen that interview with I think it's a college student. She's like doing her first interview with an actor because he's doing like a press tour, like a press thing for like one of his latest films. And she's like, it's just so funny because I just saw American Beauty before getting here. He's like, oh, okay. Why is that funny? Because you're in it. He's like, no, I'm not. That was Kevin Spacey. That was not me. I forgot his name, but I know he played Edgar Allan Poe in an Edgar Allan Poe movie a couple years ago.
Okay.
And it was just so funny just seeing the interactions. Like, she's like, yes, you were. I'm like,
gosh, I hope I would do better if I was like gonna meet the person. I was like, wait a minute. Oh, that's very funny.
So, do you have any other observations about this movie?
Oh, okay, wait. I took some notes. Oh, my partner, we were talking about Tony Hale earlier, who was the teacher in Community. I couldn't think of his name.
Tony Hale.
Tony Hale. I've met him before. I can't believe I didn't think of his name. Okay, let's see. Yeah, okay. A lot about the warehouse. I was like, she has her own jukebox. That's ridiculous. Oh, and this was a key point I put after like that love scene. I was like, butts banging in bowl cuts, because Demi Moore has that freaking bowl cut through this whole movie, which I thought was a funny statement. What else do I have here? Oh, and I still love how well Whoopi pulls off no eyebrows, just iconically. I'm like, no one else can do this. If I don't have, I bleach my eyebrows sometimes because I have colored hair and I fill it in. I look like an alien. Whoopi looks super cool, and she always has. Yeah, and I wrote down Molly, you in danger, girl. Oh, yeah, and then I forgot. Okay, so the scene it did make me cry. It made me cry when she's like, okay, you can use my body to come back to say goodbye. Like, and he's about to go up to heaven or whatever. And I'm like, this is really romantic. But then I'm just picturing that this is actually Whoopi Goldberg. Like, she's like, and they show us Patrick Swayze, so we see like the romanticized whatever. But like, no. And then there's the scene where he falls out and she's just standing there. And I'm like, I have like tears on my face, and I'm like, this feels silly.
Yeah, I believe it was Roger Ebert who said that like it was kind of hard to like believe that part because we know it's Whoopi.
Yeah.
And I think he said it would have made more sense if it was just Whoopi and Demi. But I'm like, I like the part with Patrick because she's saying goodbye to Patrick, not goodbye to Whoopi.
Yeah.
Or the characters.
Yeah.
I always, when I say their names, I always like say the actor's name and not the character's name when I'm really talking about the character.
No, I get it.
But you should know what I mean by not listeners.
Oh, and I also have a note that said the worst part about Ghost was the Dementors, because when the two dudes died, I was like, oh, there's another part to this. There's evil. Then like the ghosts came up that like looked like Dementors to like rip Carl and the other guy to hell.
Yeah, so this is very interesting, but I didn't know this until I did more research. The sound that they make is actually the sound of a baby crying.
Oh.
But in reverse and slowed down.
Oh, creepy.
Yeah, and I heard it again. I'm like, oh, that's why it sounded creepy.
Yeah. Oh, I love sound lore. That's cool.
So I want to talk a little bit about the writing for this movie.
Mm-hmm.
So Bruce Joel Rubin is the writer.
Okay.
And he said he wanted to tell a ghost story from the ghost perspective. And he said this in one of the documentary movies in the special features of the Blu-ray. One day I was watching a production of Hamlet, which begins with the ghost of Hamlet's father saying, "Revenge my death." I thought, wow, let's transpose that into the 20th century. It'd be an interesting story, and the idea hit me.
That's fun. And I mean, he did it.
He did. And as far as like actors considered for the role, there were a lot of actors who they wanted for this role who turned it down because they'd be playing a ghost and not someone who actually had an impact on the story as much as like a human living person would. So let me just read off a list of who was considered.
Okay.
Harrison Ford.
Oh.
Michael J. Fox.
Oh.
Paul Hogan. Tom Hanks. Kevin Bacon. Kevin Kline. Alec Baldwin. And Tom Cruise.
That's a long list.
Here's the part that really brought it over, because at the time Demi Moore was married to Bruce Willis.
Yes.
And they wanted him to play the role as well. And he turned it down because he thought it was silly. And then he said later on that he called himself a knucklehead for turning it down.
Yeah.
But you know what? He eventually did play a ghost. And that,
oh my
what was
God.
that movie? What's the name of that movie?
Sixth Sense.
Yeah, there we go.
Yeah, I have seen that one. Yeah, he was a ghost the whole time. And he didn't even know.
I never saw that movie, but like, I know the twist now, so I'm not sure it had that much of an impact on me. But at the time, it's like, yo!
Yeah. I mean, that's one of the ones that I've seen, and I remember enjoying it, but that was a long time ago, so I have no idea if it holds up. You could do a does it hold up test, I guess, if you wanted to watch it.
Yeah, that could be a new feature of this movie, of this podcast. And for the role of Molly, Michelle Pfeiffer, Molly Ringwald, Meg Ryan, Julia Roberts, and Nicole Kidman were considered for that role.
Okay, that feels like a classic list right there. 1990s.
Really classic list, yeah.
Yeah.
And as far as the role of Oda Mae Brown, you know, Whoopi's role, Whoopi said that like everyone and their mother were trying to get that role, and they were looking for like a lot of people. And when she asked her agent, like, hey, a lot of people I know are auditioning for this role, like, should I audition? What's going on? Her agent said, no, they're looking for someone that's unknown for this role, and they think that you're too well known for this role.
Oh.
And at that point, Patrick Swayze had already been cast, and he was looking at the part, and he said he wouldn't do it unless Whoopi Goldberg was in the movie.
Oh.
Even though they never met, he just knew she was right for the role.
That's awesome.
And just getting Patrick Swayze in the movie, so the writer, Ruben, he fought to get him into the lead role, but the director said no. He kept opposing the idea for it. He's like, Patrick Swayze, are you sure? Like, I've never really seen him on film before.
Wow.
And the writer, Ruben, he's like, let's just go see him on the film. And so they went to see Roadhouse. And at the end of the movie, Jerry Zucker looked at Ruben. He said, over my dead body.
Wow.
And yeah, just Patrick getting the role was just a hassle. But eventually they were able to like convince him to like come in and do like a reading of the film. And Jerry liked him during the reading. He's like, okay, you're in the movie.
The scenes with Demi Moore and him, like, he steals the show. Like, his acting is like very, very good. Like, you know, she can cry in command, but like I felt his emotions, you know? He's
a very charming person. Like, he commands the presence on screen.
Yeah.
You know? Like, I don't want to be mean to Demi.
No.
But I kind of feel like anyone else could have been in that role.
Kinda, yeah. I know like she's iconic because she can just like produce her big old tears. Which I was like, I can do that too. No, I can't.
Just think about how all the people who wronged me.
But yeah, like it could have been like that list that you put off. It could have been any of them, really. She did good, but it could have been anybody.
Yeah, I think the two roles, Patrick's role and Whoopi's role, I don't see anyone else doing that besides those two. They really made that movie.
100%.
They carried that movie. Not that it needed much carrying. I thought it was a good movie, but they made it what it is, essentially.
Yeah.
It's so very, very charming movie because of them.
A sexy paranormal thriller.
So, a little bit about the filming. So, filming began shooting in July 1989. Most of the interior scenes were shot at Paramount in Los Angeles, while the exterior scenes were shot in New York City, particularly in Bedford-Stuyvesant, Soho, and Wall Street, for about 5 weeks. And the film features about 100 special effects shots. And Demi Moore's famous haircut in the movie was designed by Manhattan hairstylist John Sahag.
Okay, we can blame him for the bowl cut. No, she can pull it off, but it is a bowl cut.
I want to talk a little bit about the video effects, and in particular the finale of the movie, because that's the only part of the movie that I got some research I could find online.
Yeah.
So I'm just going to read it up real quick. If you guys don't like my reading voice, well, that's too bad. Back in 1990, optical compositing with an optical printer was still the main way that effects would be composited. But video effects were fast becoming something used more and more, particularly in TV shows. So when Richard Edlund was called upon in a very short amount of time to help craft the end sequence to Ghost, this is the moment when Patrick Swayze's character ascends to heaven. Video effects were deemed suitable approach for the ethereal-looking shots. And in this expert from Masters of FX, Edlund explains how the sequence was put together. Edlund would take advantage of the digital technology and its ability to provide fast shot turnarounds when he was asked to produce effects on the final sequence in Ghost, just for the purpose of like a test screening. And here's what he said. What they had cut into the movie at the time was Patrick Swayze kissing Demi Moore, and then him walking up a Mylar platform toward a blue screen with grips in the shot. You couldn't have that scene at the end of the movie and expect the audience to be into it. It had to be ethereal and ghostly and powerful. I got a piece of work print and went into the bay at the post group of Steve Price, who was a really great compositor. I brought some elements that had been shot at the Oxbury animation stand with an endoscope of Christmas tinsel and stuff like that. We brought these elements into the Harry and we put Patrick Swayze into this heaven environment, and were able to increase the resolution to make it work for film even though it was video. And all this had to be completed in like 2 weeks. So, which was unheard of in the time in the film world. He said, on Monday, I got the gig. Then Tuesday, I went in and worked with Steve. And then I think half a day on Wednesday, we then took the material and the guys did the up-resing on film recorder. It came out great, and on Friday, I took the shot back over and they were dumbfounded. We did the whole sequence, and remember, this was just on work print. We showed it to the studio, and they all thought it was a final. So the movie tested extremely well, and it was an extreme hit.
Nice. Wow.
That was pretty much the start of like using digital stuff in film. Not the start, but like I guess make it more mainstream.
I mean, it was because like Jurassic Park's 1996, and that was like big like stuff. So 1990, that's got to be the beginning. And I remember now that you say that, I mocked the scene where they're kissing because like he's clearly not there, and they're both just doing this, just holding flat lips with no emotion towards each other.
Yeah.
The other stuff looks good, but the kiss was like very weird and fake.
Yeah, it's a lot of the shots look very dated.
Yeah. Yeah.
And I think some of this stuff can be done on a phone now.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, it's been 31 years since that movie came out. Of course, technology has gone up, and it's kind of hard for us to believe that, but we had to acknowledge like the technology at the time was not that great.
Yep.
But yeah, it's still them with flat lips.
Yeah, they're just like, I was like, what? Is that how you guys kiss? Like,
oh, man. So this film became a huge hit without them even knowing it will become a hit. So it's the highest grossing film of 1990. So
it's a fun fact.
Budget at $22 million, and they grossed $505 million in the box office.
Wow.
And that was very unexpected for them. They're like, what? We had no idea. And Ruben, he's from Detroit. He did an interview with the Detroit News. So during a Ghost sneak peek in Detroit, Ruben said that he didn't dare look around the theater in case there were vacant seats. And here's what he said. I just couldn't bear the thought nobody wanted to see my movie.
Aww.
All of a sudden, I started people sitting in the rows ahead of me, and I was really surprised. But I turned around, and the entire theater was completely full. I had no idea where these people came from and how they knew about the movie. It was just a preview. I saw people sitting in the aisles. I've never seen that before. When Ghost came on, they loved it. They just loved it. I was excited.
Maybe they were all ghosts. That's how
What?
they knew. What? This whole time?
It sounds like a fire safety hazard right there.
It
to
does.
have them sitting in the
does.
aisles.
Yes.
So maybe that's how they died.
Yeah, maybe that's how they died. No. Oh, that's very sweet. That's a fun, happy story right there.
And then Jerry Zucker, he called Ruben from Los Angeles, and he said that his previews had sold out nationwide. And here's what he also said. On opening night, the cast and crew went around in a bus to different theaters in LA. At one theater, there was a line around the block. I couldn't believe that. Turned out,
wow.
It was not only the line for the next showing, but for the showing after that. We sold out every single theater, and we continue to sell out every single theater throughout the rest of the summer. We opened in July. We were still playing in December.
That's a long-running movie.
Very long. And
holy crap.
he won the Oscar for Best Original Screenplay.
Yeah. Yeah. Oh man, it's okay. So I said it earlier, but yeah, 1990 was the year I was born. So it's I can't believe it took me this long to watch the highest like best movie pretty much of the year I was born. 31
Very
years,
popular.
like you said.
I think they made even more, or maybe like the equivalent of what they made in the box office with like the video rentals, because it
Got
was like
to.
one of those very popular films, and the film's success made romantic films more viable. So movies like Die Hard 2, Total Recall, and Dick Tracy, they failed to like claim the slot at the top 5 year-end box office. But romantic comedy Pretty Woman did, and just like Ghost, it was another love film that made a lot of money. And in New York Times 1990 article, it says, the success of Ghost and Pretty Woman has revitalized the romantic comedy, a genre that in recent years had become less appealing to Hollywood studios intent on making blockbuster action-adventure films. And after Ghost, we had other films like The Bodyguard, Jerry Maguire, and Titanic, which all became huge hits in that genre.
Oh yeah, it was a catalyst. That's cool.
So I want to ask you, what do you think is so iconic with this film, besides like Patrick's character and Whoopi's character? What do you think is so iconic with this?
Well, I guess you brought it up. So many actors didn't want to do this because they were like, you're a ghost the whole time. He dies within like the first 10 minutes of the movie. So I think, the idea that somebody can change somebody's life from the afterlife is a pretty cool takeaway from this whole thing, and that it's that successful because you know what? People love the weird. People love the strange and unusual.
I agree with that as well, And Ruben, he said that like he thinks it's people like it so much because they like the idea of saying "I love you" one last time before they die.
Yeah.
Which I think that's a pretty universal feeling,
100%, yeah.
And Sam never got to say it, so damn, Sam, come on, Sam.
Oh, ditto. I knowed him at the end. I was like, oh, that's the similar thing to "I love you, I know."
If Harrison Ford was in this role, this would have been like
His second
the second time he'd done this in his career.
Yeah, he was like, I can't do that again.
He probably got in shit for that for years. There would be memes of him saying like, him saying "I love you" to his kids, like, "Hey, Dad, I love you." I know, or ditto.
Right? There would be pin groups that were ditto and "I know."
Yeah.
Yeah, that's funny to think.
That's crazy to think about that.
My partner was like, what would we say? And then he was like, I would just sing a song about butts. And I was like, okay, that's the answer. Because we're total goofs. I was like, it wouldn't be ditto.
You have any other thoughts on this movie?
Oh, we didn't talk about the final death that you said was the last thing that you remember. The big piece of glass that goes into his belly.
We can talk about that.
It's just kind of wild. I was like, oh, I didn't think they were going to murder everyone and send them to hell. I didn't think that going into this movie. I thought that, like, I don't know, maybe he'd go to jail. But they were like, no, we're going to murder him. They basically they were like, you get the ultimate revenge and you still get to go to heaven. Because he kind of just killed those two guys.
He really did.
When you think about it.
Like, I don't think he really meant for Carl to die.
Yeah.
But he did lead the other mugger to his death.
Yeah.
I guess that was more, I think he hated him more because he was the one who killed him.
Yeah.
And he was also in the apartment when Molly was alone.
Right. He was being creepy. Yeah.
He was like leering at her too. He was like, no.
I mean, because Carl says it at one point. Okay, all of this also was for $80,000, which I know that there's inflation, but that would still be what, like 150, maximum like 200 grand. It's like not that much money to like murder your best friend. But Carl initially said that he was just supposed to mug him, so it was like an accident, kind of. The guy murdered him, and he wasn't supposed to. But it's still like you still shouldn't have hired someone to mug your best friend, sir.
It's also like $4 million he was trying to launder through the bank.
Right.
So that is a high amount, but like killing your best friend.
His cut was only 80 grand from that 4 million.
Exactly.
It's like, what?
All right, because that was how much he was getting, right?
Yeah. His cut from it was 80 grand. And
Dude.
I know. I was like, that is a bad deal, sir.
That is, you got your payment to go to hell.
Yeah.
That's.
Yep.
And now a word from our sponsors. Now back to the show.
This is Spinal Tap is a 1984 American mockumentary film co-written and directed by Rob Reiner in his directorial debut. It stars Christopher Guest, Michael McKean, and Harry Shearer as members of the fictional English heavy metal band Spinal Tap, and Reiner as Marty DeBurgi a documentary filmmaker who follows them on their American tour. This movie was on Jason's list. Jason, why is this movie on your list?
Yeah, so this movie was on my list because most of my listeners already know, but I'm a filmmaker, and I'm not sure if you knew this, but I'm also a filmmaker.
Yes. That's cool.
So 2 years ago, I think it was that wasn't my second to last bit. When I was still in school, we took a genre filmmaking class. And I didn't go to school for film school. I went to school for communication with a focus on digital media. So whenever people say, oh, what film school did you go to, Jason? Like, no, I didn't go to film school. I did a smart route. I went to learn about communication. It was a genre filmmaking class. And I believe it was my second project for that semester. And I wanted to go off on my own to make like a mockumentary about being a security guard, because I was once a security guard. The stories I could tell just were funny, and I wanted to make fun of like the UMD police. So because I went to University of Maryland,
okay,
and they would regularly send out these alerts for stuff that didn't even concern most of us. And whenever it did concern us, they'll be like, "Okay, so the gunman has left campus, and we're good." What? So the police didn't catch him?
Oh.
And this is not just for like people with guns, but like also like sexual assaulters. Like, oh yeah, the flasher has left campus, no longer a problem. What? I have an archive of these emails in my in my account.
Yeah.
And I use that as material for my film. And I wanted to see other examples of mockumentaries because at that point I'd only seen The Office and Parks and Rec. Mm-hmm. And I heard that This Is Spinal Tap is the movie that kind of started that genre, that specific genre of the mockumentary.
Yeah.
Unfortunately, I didn't have enough time, so I didn't get to see it. But if I'd seen it, I probably would have done the same thing anyway. It would have been the same result in the film. Eventually, the short film I made did get into an international film festival.
Oh, cool.
And people liked it, but some of the people who worked on the film didn't like it. I don't think they understood that like it looked amateurish because that was on purpose.
There's a style. It sounds like such a good idea. I would watch that.
Yeah,
wow.
I'll put a link in the bio of this description of this podcast.
Awesome.
I'll also send it to you directly, Katrina. So
please, yes, that's such a good idea for a mockumentary. Oh my gosh. So Jason, what was your initial thought about This Is Spinal Tap?
So my initial thought was, I think I'm going to like this movie because Rob Reiner directed it. So not many people know this. I didn't even know this either, but Rob Reiner is the most versatile director in Hollywood right now.
Oh, wow.
Because he will direct so many different movies, so many different genres, and there isn't a particular style to it. You just think it's just like a generic movie. So, for example, he did A Princess Bride, and he also did A Few Good Men.
Oh my gosh.
They're both very different.
Drastically different.
And yeah, he directed both of them, and they're both very good films in their own right. So I knew this was going to be good because of Rob Reiner.
I do love Rob Reiner. He's very fun. He's a good actor and a good director.
He's hilarious. So I just thought,
he's Jess's dad, right?
Huh?
I think he plays Jess's dad.
Yeah. And what's her name? The Halloween girl plays her mom. The one from Halloween.
Oh, Jamie Lee Curtis.
There we go.
Yes.
But yeah, so that was my initial thought. And when I'm watching this, I'm like, okay, I can understand why some people might think this is a real documentary because it's shot like a real documentary. And they actually used a cinematographer who'd shot other rock documentaries, so it kind of has that same feel. But I'm watching this, and I'm like, okay, I kind of get the jokes, but I'm not laughing too much. But like, I'm like smiling, like, oh, I got that, I understood that. There were only 2 times I laughed out loud. Like, I don't remember the last time I laughed out loud, unironically, but this happened with this film. The one in particular that I love, the joke is like the post-credit scene is when I forgot the character's name, but he's asking him, what do you think you would be doing if you weren't a rock star? Oh, I'll probably be working at haberdashery, like at a men's suit store. And he's like, oh, okay, really? Like, what's your size, sir? What's your size? Oh, I'm 7.5. Oh, okay, I'll look in the back. Oh, really, what else are you like? Oh, I'm sorry, sir, we're all out.
I did. I laughed out a lot at that too. It's just out of left field. You're like, what? He acts out the whole scene.
Without even being prompted to do so, he just goes ahead. It's like, well, do you think you'd be happy? I don't know. What are the hours?
Yeah. He's like setting up a job interview for himself, like in this situation. Okay, so speaking of that, yeah, what are some of your other favorite scenes from the movie?
Yeah, I forgot his name as well. Here's the thing with me and names and characters. I always forget them, but I know their face. So what was it? What
I
was the
for
name of
this
that
I
guy?
usually go by the actor. The blonde guy is Christopher Guest, who is like the main. He did like Best in Show and stuff. That's how I know him, which is like cool that he's in this. But I can't remember any of their names either. I couldn't tell you one. I'm like Fran Drescher's there, Rob Reiner.
All right. So it's Harry Shearer. He
Yeah,
played Derek Smalls with the
Derek.
mustache.
Yes.
He was my favorite character because he was just so dumb and just so unaware of like what they were doing. There was this scene where like, do you remember like the that monument thing, like the Stonehenge?
Stonehenge, and it's 18.
It was after their performance, and they're really mad at their manager for like just messing up this whole thing. He's like, "Dude, you really messed up. You really fucked this up." I'm like, "Hey, man, I only listen to your instructions. Like, it's not my fault. You don't know the difference between feet and inches." I'm like, "Oh my god." Okay, just that whole interaction is hilarious because like they're like so mad at him, and he's like trying to push the blame off himself, even though he's the one that fucked up.
Yeah.
And then like the manager just quits and just leaves, and then Derek Smalls is like, "So we're not doing Stonehenge tomorrow?"
Oh, the tiny Stonehenge is such a good gag. It's such a good gag. They're like, "Have you ever seen Stonehenge?" And she's like, "Right here, 18 inches."
Honestly, like I was like, how did she get this wrong? Like, oh no, she got this right.
Yeah, she just like, this is what you gave me. And as like my partner's a set designer, I was just like the fury in his face when he like sees this. Because that's like something that people would do to you. It's like, no, you told me. I did what you gave me.
See, that's why I will sometimes get confused. So I'll just write it out 18 feet, as in this will be a very big thing.
Yeah.
If it's not taller than me, who is 6 feet, it's not good. Send it back.
I always learned that you can remember that inches are 2 dashes because there's 2 syllables. So it's inches is 2 dashes and then feet is 1. So that's how I keep it in my head. Like, you know, northeast, southwest, never eat sour watermelons. I have like a little, as a costumer, I have to know this too.
Right. That's actually pretty good. I never heard that one before.
Yep.
For me, the way I know for north, south, east, west, I always say the sun sets on the west. And
Yep.
whichever direction I'm facing, like, where's the sun? Is it afternoon or morning? Okay, so it's morning, it's on the east, it's late at night, so it's on the west.
That's the classic way. I was taught as a child never eat sour watermelons, but that doesn't help me because I have to have like if I'm looking at a map, I get northeast, southwest, but the sun is the best way to do it.
The main thing,
Yeah.
the main thing. And then people always like, oh, just look for the North Star at night. Like, sir, do you not see
What?
how many stars are up in
yeah.
the sky? Which one is it?
I live in Los Angeles. I don't get to see the stars.
Like, and there are the occasional like helicopters and airplanes. Like, they look red. I'm like, is that a red star? No, that is moving too fast for it to be a red star.
Right? You're like, wait, no.
So, yeah, that's a good thing to note. What did you think of this movie? Like, you said you've seen it once before and you saw it again. So, like, do you think you liked it more now, or?
I really always enjoy a second watch through of movies. It's a thing, like, you know, I rewatch TV shows like Community. There's so many things in the background. So it's like fun to do a second rewatch because you know the story already, so you don't have to completely focus on it. But I can look at the costumes are very, very good in this because they're like insane. So I get to like look at more details of the costumes. Yeah, it's a good time. It's silly. It's fun. I love Christopher Guest and Rob Reiner and Fred Willard. I love Fred Willard. He is so silly. It's always a fun romp through the mockumentary world. I love mockumentaries.
I think for me, I was really surprised when Fran Drescher showed up.
Yeah.
Because I've kind of like a huge crush on her because like I like her voice. I really like her voice and like her acting style. So it's like
she's got a good voice.
She's here. The nanny's here.
Right? The nanny is here and she looks excellent. She looks fabulous. She's taking control of the situation.
And like her description of like the album that they can't sell.
Oh,
we can't sell this at Sears and Kmart. Well, yeah, now you can't.
Yeah.
Oh man, I actually used to work at Sears.
Oh, really?
Yeah, I hated it. It was actually my first retail job.
Okay.
And that's when I started to realize like the toxicity of like retail workplace.
Yeah.
Just a quick side story for everyone. I was like 19 when I first started working at Sears, and you know, you're standing for like several hours, right? So at one point I was just like lean or like put one knee on like on a stool, And that's when I first heard the phrase, if you got time to lean, you got time to clean.
Oh, gosh.
That's when I first heard that phrase. I'm like, what the? And that was like a manager that was like the first manager, not the first, but like one of the first few. I'm like, oh, you're not a very good leader, sir.
No.
Because he would always be sitting in his office going over some stuff. Like, he was busy. Like, I can understand he was a busy man. He wasn't just like being a lazy guy. But most of the time he spent was in the office. I'm like, bro, like,
what are you doing there?
are you not standing? Because at that point, I'll be like standing for like 5 or 6 hours. I'm like, what the fuck?
Yeah, exactly.
Are you not human, sir?
Oh, gosh forbid I take a rest.
And this is like the part where I got really mad because one of my coworkers, she had like I had to have a doctor's note to get a stool to like sit at the cashier's at the cash wrap because she had just been pregnant. She just gave birth and had to have a doctor's note to have that. And I think after like 2 weeks, the doctor's note expired. I say this in quotes, expired. So she wasn't allowed to have it. And she told me this. I'm like, you just gave birth.
Yeah. You shouldn't even be at work.
Exactly. So.
Let alone use a chair. What?
Just using a chair. Who cares if you're on a chair? Like,
that's ridiculous. All cashiers should be allowed to sit down. Why do they have to be forced to stand? That's bizarre.
It's annoying. It's a really annoying concept. But yeah.
Okay, yeah, but that brought back Sears memories for you.
Yeah, I was like, yeah, now you can't.
Yeah, now you can't. I have a side is the drummers. They all.
Oh yes.
I was a drummer growing up too, so this always makes me feel like my dad was a drummer and he had a drum set. So it was like when I had to go into band, they're like, "What do you want?" My dad was like, "You get the snare drum because I already have one." So like it's just funny to me that the drummer was always exploding, and I was like, oh, like it like felt like personal to me. I was like, no.
Yeah, that was really funny. Like they always had a different drummer, and like they always died unexpectedly.
They like basically spontaneously combusted, a few of them, I think. Like,
yeah,
what?
and like, what happened to your first drummer? Oh yeah, he died. He choked on vomits, not his own vomits.
Oh yeah, oh my gosh.
There's no way to prove whose vomit it was. I'm like, that's a little suspicious, but okay.
a little suspicious.
And then what happened to the other drummer? And I like how it wasn't all in a row.
Right.
It was just sparse throughout the interview, like sparse throughout the beginning of the movie. Like, and what happened to your third drummer? Oh yeah, he died. Just unexpectedly, just spontaneously combusted. Happens to like at least 10 people a year,
Yeah, they gave a quote about it. And I love when they interview the current drummer and he's like in the bathtub and he's like, it's not going to happen to me, right? Like the law of averages, like it can't be all of us. And then, yep, he dies too.
And then just cut to a different drummer. I'm like, yo! So I don't want to say their name because I don't like them anymore for what their statements before. But like this author has a very particular popular franchise involving magic in schools.
Yeah. Yep. I said the word from it earlier too. And I agree with you, but yeah. Okay.
But yeah, they said that like, they were inspired, by this particular character to always kill off a certain teacher because of this movie. So like there's a particular course in this school and the teachers always die before the school year ends.
Yeah.
And this is inspired by This is Spinal Tap's drummers always dying.
I had no idea. That's insane.
For those of you who don't know what I'm talking about, don't worry about it.
Yeah. I think that by now everybody knows. Oh, wow. That's very interesting. I didn't know that. That's a fun fact. Fun fact for like all that. That always bums me out now. I'm like, I don't want to talk about it anymore, but that is a fun fact.
Yeah. No SEO for her.
Yeah.
For them.
Yes.
So another thing I found very funny about this movie is like, as the tour goes on, their venues get smaller and smaller and smaller.
Yeah.
Because like their promotional material is their marketing sucks. Like their manager is not doing. They have a horrible manager, right?
Marty.
And then eventually, like the drummer, the lead's girlfriend becomes their manager, and it gets even worse from there.
Even worse.
And the one that made me laugh like out loud was when. It said Puppet Show and This is in Spinal Tap. And she said, if I told them once, I told them a million times, it's Spinal Tap and then Puppet Show.
Oh my gosh. What? I know that reminds me, at one point they're like, oh, well, they canceled Boston. And they're like, oh, that's not a big college town anyways. And it's like.
Right. That.
They're just so stupid.
Oh, man. I'm like, that's what they're known for. That is Boston.
Yeah.
But that Puppet Show part was like,
Oh my
Yo,
gosh.
what?
What?
Not that the fact they're like with a puppet show, but just that the puppet show is above them.
Yeah.
Also, like where they're playing at the Air Force Base.
Oh my gosh.
That was like so embarrassing because like they did not understand the tone
No.
that they needed for that movie, needed for that base at all. Like, there's a particular audience that's at the Air Force Base. You're not the greatest for that audience. They really.
It's such a funny comparison to have them there.
Yeah, and this is actually based off like another musician because they told them while they're filming this movie that they came back from like another show and then they were scheduled to play at an Air Force base and they thought it was so funny that they put it in the movie.
Do you know what's the musician?
So, according to Harry Shearer in the Criterion Edition DVD commentary, keyboard player John Sinclair had just returned from touring with Uriah Heep
Oh, no, I don't know who that is.
when principal photography was about to begin and told them how they had been booked to play an Air Force base. They subsequently used the story in the film.
That's very funny.
So, not anyone I know.
I looked him up. No, yeah, I don't. But they have a very this is Spinal Tap vibe. Cool. That's fun.
All right, so speaking of the production, like the story, let's get into like how this movie was made. So for the pitch for this movie, Harry Shearer, Rob Reiner, Christopher Guest, and Michael McKean, they all knew each other for several years and had worked together in various configurations before they made this movie. So they had this idea for this mockumentary about rock documentaries because they'll see them and like, I believe it was Christopher Guest who said this, I might have this wrong, but they said how like 4 million people play guitar in the US and they play this rock documentaries and like the music wouldn't go along to like what they're fingering on the guitar. And they're like, he always like be offended by that. Like, what the fuck? So then they decided to like make a mockumentary about either a band or like what goes on behind the scenes. And they thought it would be funny if they just did a mockumentary about a band, which obviously was the right choice for them. So to get financing for this film, the four of them first went to British TV mogul Sir Lou Grade, who was then the head of production company ITC. And Marble Arch, the American branch of Grade's media empire, put up $60,000 for them to develop a script based on their concept. So the four of them sat in a hotel room for about 4 days trying to compose a script until they realized it was not going to work as a sales tool for getting the full financing needed to get the movie made. And according to Shearer, they thought no one would be able to understand it on the page. So then they decided to produce a demo reel instead of making a script that would show their intended use of the documentary style to poke fun at both the fictitious band and the filmmakers who had to slavishly follow them around, hanging on every word in action. So the group shot the demo over the course of 4 days, and Reiner edited it, but Marble Arch showed no interest and dropped out.
Oh.
So there were other efforts to get Hollywood studios to get interested in it, but it just wasn't working. Most executives just couldn't understand why anyone would make a movie about a band that no one had heard of, and some suggested they turn it into a more traditional comedy with broader, more easily grasped jokes. And they finally got the support they needed from Norman Lear, the TV producer who brought Reiner into public eye by casting him as the son-in-law in the show On the Family. And eventually they were given a production budget of $2 million to make the movie.
Oh, wow. Yeah, when you said 60,000 at first, I was like, wait, what? And then you were like, for the script, I was like, oh, okay. I was like, there's no way they made that movie with that little.
Oh, yeah. No, it's a huge production.
Yeah.
So the entire film was shot in Los Angeles County over a period of 5 weeks. And the visit to Elvis Presley's grave was filmed in a park in Altadena with a mock-up of the gravesite. And they sing Heartbreak Hotel because that was the only Elvis song for which the producer, Karen Murphy, could obtain rights.
Oh, wow. Yeah, I can imagine.
Yeah, just getting any song is a hassle.
Yeah.
If you ever want to do a Beatles song, ooh, that's impossible.
Oh, yeah.
So virtually all the dialogue in the film is improvised. And I use this same method to make my short film. And this is kind of what started right here. And I think it's also used in Curb Your Enthusiasm. So the actors were given outlines indicating where scenes would begin and end and character information necessary to avoid contradictions. But everything else came from the actors. And as often as possible, the first take was used in the film to capture natural reactions.
That's cool. That's really cool.
I'm thinking of Fran with the album.
Yeah.
Like I'm not sure if like that whole imagery was improvised from her or if it was already in the scripts for her. I like to think that she improvised the whole imagery from the top of her head.
Yeah, that's really fun to think because, okay, most of the people in this are already kind of improv actors, like all of them. Her, I don't picture as an improv person, but maybe she was. I would love to think that she made that all up because she nails it. And if she like made that up, because there's a difference between acting, like a huge difference between acting and improv. Up on the Fly is like such a weird, different world that makes me like this even more.
Yeah, it's a huge skill. Like, I'm not an actor for a reason. I've been told I suck, and I realized, oh, I made the emotional discovery when I was 20. I'm like, oh, I do suck.
No.
It was like, I wasn't practicing enough, but I kind of realized eventually, like, this is not something I want to be good at.
Mm-hmm.
Like, this is not something I want to make a career in, you know?
Yeah.
So that's why I became a filmmaker. I always liked films. I wanted to be an actor at first, but I'm like, no, this is not what I want.
Yeah.
So to shoot this film, they got veteran documentary cameraman Peter Smokler, who worked as a cinematographer on this film. He was responsible for the film's handheld, and this is a French word, so I'm going to say this very wrong, but it's fine because the French are weird. Cinema verite style, which is kind of like, handheld camera style. Mm-hmm. And he had worked on other rock documentaries beforehand, so he had that feel already. He had that experience of like filming that. He worked on this film, but he had no idea. He didn't understand what was supposed to be funny about the movie when he when he made the movie. So yeah, and they shot it like a documentary.
Yeah,
and without a script or traditional shooting schedule, and so much footage was filmed. Over 100 hours of footage was filmed. They eventually required 3 editors to complete the film.
Wow, yeah. That's a lot to go through.
And honestly, like, to make a documentary, that's pretty much how do I say? It's not surprising.
Yeah, it's like the long and short of it. It's like you have to record a lot to get a little.
Yeah.
Because you never know when it's going to happen.
I've also made my own documentary, and I have the book right here. Yeah, this is the book I have
cool.
for my documentary class.
Nice.
It's Documentary Media History, Theory, and Practice by Broderick Fox. And I forget which page it said it on, but I believe he said for every minute on a documentary, there are about 30 minutes of footage shot.
Yeah.
And I was like, that's crazy. And then I shot the documentary like, oh, that's real.
Yeah. 3 editors almost feels like nothing when you think like, I was like, give them 10, give them more.
And it's all in film. It's not digital. It's all in film. So they have to go through everything.
Everything.
It's received acclaim from critics and is widely regarded as one of the best films of 1984.
84, yeah.
And Gene Siskel of the Chicago Tribune, he awarded it 4 out of 4 stars, writing, "It is so well done, in fact, that unless you're clued in beforehand, it might take you a while to realize that the rock group under dissection in This is Spinal Tap does not really exist."
I can see that. If I had gone in not knowing like that it was a mockumentary, I probably would have been like, wait, who are these guys?
They do a very good job of that. Yeah. And that's something that's been discussed in other media studies, how they'll make something that looks like a documentary and it looks official, but it's not. But people confuse it for reality. There's this case in like the 1950s or something where the BBC released like a fake documentary about plants that planted spaghetti, like cooked spaghetti, And it just looks very silly, for us nowadays. We're like, that's kind of weird, but okay. But people believe that was real. People are like, oh, where are these plants? Do they exist? Where can I get the seeds for that? Where can I buy that? Because it's kind of confusing that like the BBC, which is kind of like a serious news network most of the time, released something like this without any indication that it was supposed to be a comedy or not real. Because people are kind of clueless,
Oh, yeah.
Even in the age of information, we have a lot of misinformation.
Yep. And
some people can't tell the difference between the two.
Yeah, that's ain't that the truth. Look at me. I didn't even know it wasn't Luis Guzman.
I want to ask you, what do you think, how do you think musicians reacted to this movie?
I don't know. Okay. I guess like it depends on the musician because some people do have like that ego, right? So it could make them mad, but I feel like anybody with a relatively fine sense of humor would enjoy it, and get it, Like I feel like only the true divas were like actually upset about it because like it's clearly like it's a joke, it's funny.
So there's actually 2 things related to what you just said. So for one, there were some people who did find it very funny, and 2, It's kind of an insult to call a band funnier than Spinal Tap because they take themselves so seriously. So right here it said like the film resonated with many musicians.
Yeah.
Jimmy Page, Robert Plant, Jerry Cantrell, Dee Snider, and Ozzy Osbourne all reported that, like Spinal Tap, they had become lost in confusing arena backstage hallways trying to make their way to the stage.
I love that.
And when Dawkins, George Lynch saw the film, he is said to have exclaimed, "That's us. How they make a movie about us."
Oh my gosh. Oh, that's so funny.
I can understand because like those stage arenas are pretty big. They can get confusing to go through. And I've never been backstage, but like I always like wondered like how do you know where to go? Like are there signs?
I was a ballerina and it was nowhere as big as like a stage, but I would get lost underneath of we had like 4 pathways for like quick changes and like to get to the other side of the stage, and I would get lost. So yeah, going to and that's one that I performed in every like 3 months or something. So them going to new ones, like I would get lost too. That's crazy.
So some other people, in particular U2 guitarist The Edge, he said in the documentary It Might Get Loud that when he first saw Spinal Tap, he said, "I didn't laugh, I wept, because it summed up what a brainless swamp big label rock music had become."
Oh, yeah, okay, that's a different way to look at it.
Mm-hmm.
Oh, that's sad.
Any other thoughts you had on this movie?
I mean, it's, it's like an iconic, because it's the start of like mockumentaries. It's a great way to spend an afternoon is watching this movie is what it is. It's nothing like world changing, but it's a really good time. I guess that's mostly how I feel about it. I love it, but it's nothing that I would like write home to my mom about.
One last joke that I also really found was funny was when they said like the album, they're saying it's sexist. And he's like, "What's wrong with being sexy?"
Yeah, he's like, "What's wrong with being sexy?"
No, not sexy, sexist.
Yeah, that gag's so silly, and then they end up just making it black, and they can see the reflection of themselves in it. So they're like, "We love this," because they're vain.
Oh man! And speaking of that album, when they did the signing, and no one showed up.
Yeah. Oh, it's so sad. That's everyone's worst nightmare. That's like doing something.
Yes. Well, the local promoter there, he's just like, "Just smack my ass, man. Just hit me. Just hit me. I messed up. Just hit me."
Oh my gosh.
And this just reminded me on this story I read on Reddit, which it could be fake, but I'm not sure. But I think it was back in the 90s or 80s. But Betty White, she wrote a book and she had a signing, and this person saw that no one was there, and she's just like waiting there patiently for people. And I don't think they bought a book, but they just saw that she was just waiting for people, and no one would come over to the table. I'm like, Betty White?
Yeah, that sounds fake, doesn't it? She's been famous for like 50 years.
Yeah, and I'm like, I don't know, I'm not sure about that, but like, if it is true, like for anyone, it's very sad. Like you have a table set up and people see you and you see them.
And they're like,
and
hand over their face. Yeah.
They're just ignoring you. Like, no, please don't make this any worse.
Aww.
Because I've been on both ends of this. Or like I don't have a table for like signing, like I don't have a book or anything to promote. But like whenever I have a table, I guess for like my job, I'm trying to get people to like come over and talk to us. They see us, I see them, and they walk away. And and like I don't take it too personally because it's not right for everyone. But
right.
Some people do take it personally. You can see it in their eyes. They take it a little personally. Like, bro, I don't want to work at Best Buy, okay?
Oh my gosh.
And at the school I used to go to, they'll regularly have job fairs. It's a good thing to have good job fairs, but I believe like 20 to 30% of the tables will be taken up by cops from different departments, different counties, whatever. And I'm like, I'm not trying to become a cop. Yeah. I never want to become a cop.
Yeah, what is this, a job fair or a cop room? Get out of here.
And it's just like, they see me, I see them, loaded up and everything. Like, nope, I'm good.
Yeah, you're like,
I'm a shadow. I'm a ghost. I'm not here.
You're Patrick Swayze.
Don't make me become a ghost.
Yeah, no, I don't want to actually be him.
And that's the end of our discussion for today. Thank you, Katrina, so much for being here and bearing with my rambling. I always like it when people can bear with my ramblings.
Oh, you were rambling? I thought I was rambling. We're a good duo then.
So, Katrina, I want to ask you, Ghost and This Is Spinal Tap, did you find them a hit or a miss?
I can say they're both a hit for me. I enjoyed both of those movies, and I am pretty picky usually. Like, people have said that I can Katrina movies, which is when I like nitpick them and ruin them for the people that love them. So I think they were a hit.
I agree with you as well. I found both of them a hit. I don't think I mentioned this, but I found Ghost in particular surprising for me to like because I don't usually like romantic comedies or like those type of films. I think I'm just getting older and I can appreciate different genres for what they are. And I found myself smiling in a lot of parts where, like, supposedly I used to find cheesy, you know?
Yeah.
But I found myself smiling like, oh, okay, I like this movie.
Oh, that's good to hear.
I'm growing, okay?
Look at you. You're developing. You're growing.
All right, so Katrina, where can we find you on social media?
So I would say primarily you can find me on Twitch, twitch.tv/AbraKatrina. It's ABRACATRENA. Abra Katrina. I stole that from Adventure Time.
I will say her streams are very fun. I like those streams, Katrina.
I love when you pop in.
So about that, I've seen Community like for like 5 years, but at that point I just saw an episode that had Magnitude in it.
Yeah.
And I was just like, on all the channels that I subscribed to, I just said, y'all heard about my boy Magnitude? Some people got it, some people didn't. The people who didn't get it, like the Twitch streamer, they're like, who? And then the whole chat will go pop.
Lit up with pop. Oh, I love that. And I freaked out because I love Community. I was like, what? Magnitude? Pop. And my main mod also loves Community. So like every time we see your name, we get excited.
Yeah, some people don't get it. And like sometimes the chat is too big. There's like over 100 people in there. I'm like, oh,
yeah, you missed stuff.
I missed it. I'll try next time. But for that moment, it worked. I'm like, yes.
No, I loved it. It was like an iconic day.
All right. Thank you, everyone, for listening. And until next time, cross off a new film from your list. Thank you for listening to the Hit List podcast. If you liked this episode, please consider giving us 5 stars and leaving a review. It really does help. You can also follow us on Facebook at The Hit List Podcast and Instagram at _hitlist_podcast.